it going, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much for joining me for another video. It is Thursday, so I have wide receivers, 35 options. I'm going through wide receiver 1s, 2s, and some flex considerations as well. This is hopefully going to help you to make the best decisions that you can, get all the information you need so you can dominate your opponents and go after that dub. If you guys have any start-sit questions, I would love to be able to help you out with them. Please drop all of that down below. I get back really quickly and I answer every question or comment that I receive. If you would not mind crushing that like button for me, it helps me out a bunch. And then please subscribe to the channel. I'm on my way to my first 500 subscribers, and you could be a part of that by helping me out. Now, let's get into wide receivers. Headlining tier number 1 is my little Cooper Kupp. He is apparently the only Rams wide receiver that exists. He's doing his best to carry a really heavy load, and he scored in all but one game so far this season. At number 2, I have Stefon Diggs. I think everybody in this game is going to have their fair share of work, and for Diggs, that means he could threaten his season high of 148 yards that he posted back in week number 2. Next up is Justin Jefferson. He's been on fire over the last couple games. He's put up 301 yards so far in the last 2, and he's scored as well, and he's going to make it 3 straight finishes in the top 4 this week. At number 4, I have Mike Evans. There really is not a better matchup you could ask for than Pittsburgh for Big Mike. The Steelers are allowing the most points per game to the position, and Evans seems to have finally found his groove. He is going to terrorize this secondary all day. Next up is Jamar Chase. He is at the top of tier number 2 against the Saints. It has certainly not been a season so far that owners were hoping for when most people spent a high-end first-round pick on him, but the monster game is coming, so keep the faith. Hopefully, he can just pull a Justin Jefferson and go crazy on Marshawn Lattimore. At 6, I have AJ Brown against Dallas. After averaging over 10 targets per game in his first 3, Brown has just 7 apiece over his last 2. Jalen Hurts, I think, ensures that he gets back on track, and as good as Stefon Diggs has been and may be, we know that he is susceptible to giving up the big play. At number 7, I have Deebo Samuel. He saw a season-high 9 targets last week, and you absolutely love that. It is a promising sign, but he caught just 2 of them. That was not great. He gets the volume here against Atlanta, though. He is going to boom. The Falcons allow the 6th most points per game to pass catchers at nearly 33 a clip. At 8, I have Marquise Brown against Seattle. This is going to be the last week that you get him with all of the targets to himself, so you might as well enjoy it. Even against the Seattle defense, which is surprisingly top 10 in allowing points to wide receivers, he will produce. At number 9, I have DK Metcalf. He's put up back-to-back wide receiver 1 finishes, and Arizona secondary hasn't really been able to keep people out of the end zone, and guess what? That happens to be Metcalf's forte. At number 10, and at the top of tier 3 is CeeDee Lamb against Philadelphia. He could struggle to find space against that brutal Philly secondary, and after a letdown last week, I can understand a little hesitancy in rolling him out, but I am still sticking with the Cowboys alpha. I blame the game script against LA last week. To number 11, it is Jaylen Waddle. After receiving 19 targets back in week number 2, Waddle has just 14 of them over the last 3 games. I knew that he would miss Tua, probably more than anyone is what I said, but I did not expect it to come to this. Now, thankfully, he is destined to get more looks because Tyreek Hill is banged up and he might not go at all. To 12, the last wide receiver 1 that I have is Courtland Sutton. He gets a good matchup here. The Chargers allow 2 passing touchdowns per game, and Sutton only has a single score on the season thus far. We have absolutely loved the floor that he has provided us. Now we just need that ceiling to show itself. At 13 is Michael Pittman against Jacksonville. He has certainly given owners a bumpy ride over the last 3 weeks, but the Jags could be the perfect medicine for him. They allow top 10 numbers in yards per completion. Next up is Tyler Lockett, and on just 6 targets last week, Lockett conjured up a wide receiver 3 overall finish. He's averaging nearly 95 yards receiving over his last 4 games. Gotta love it. Came out of nowhere. At 15, I have Mike Williams against the Broncos, and if Keenan Allen does not return in this game, I actually think it is a downgrade for him. It might be worse than it would if Allen was there, and that is because Patrick Surtain has been absolutely crushing every wide receiver that he has faced. However, we know with Big Mike, you throw one up in the end zone, and that is all that it takes. At the top of tier 4, I have Christian Kirk. The Colts are second in the NFL. They allow just over 20 points a game to pass catchers, so it is going to be rough for him to break out of this current funk that he is in. That being said, he was wide receiver 7 the last time these two teams met up back in week 2 when he scored twice. Gabe Davis is in at 17. Little celebration here. I told you guys to keep the faith, and I really hope you listened. Davis exploded last week. 3 catches, 171 yards, 2 scores. It was headlined, and he got on the board early with that 98-yard touchdown on the first 3rd down in the entire game. And do I need to remind you of what happened last time he faced off against Kansas City? Look it up. It was pretty good. At 18, I have Tyreek Hill. He tumbles a little bit because of the foot injury, and he also was seen in a walking boot as the game was going on. You do not like to see that. However, the Vikings give up over 11 yards per completion, and we know that Hill is a big play nightmare. So if he is able to go, he starts for me. At 19, I have Chris Godwin against Pittsburgh. If you've been patiently waiting, and you had to have been most likely if he is still with you, this is the game that you have been waiting for. Pittsburgh gives up 12.5 yards per completion, and the 3rd time is the charm for Godwin in his return from injury. T. Higgins is next, and if Higgy can go, there is still going to be risk here after he killed owners last week while being active and then basically not playing for the entirety of the contest. We have to monitor reports to see how his ankle is progressing. I will say, though, his upside is probably enough for me to start him unless he is a game time decision. Starting off tier number 5, I have Chris Olave. It's another guy that we're going to need to check on because he made an incredible catch last week in Seattle right before he was taken off with that concussion. Somehow he was knocked out, basically cold, and still held on to the ball to help owners out, was I'm sure what was on his mind while that was going on. If he is active against the Bengals, he is active for me. At 22, I have Amari Cooper. Sure, he has definitely bombed in a bad way in 2 out of 5 games this season, but coincidentally, those were the games that he did not receive double-digit targets. And in the other 3, he has finishes of wide receiver 10, 4, and 11. So for me, he is worth the gamble. Diontae Johnson is next. He did receive 13 targets last week. That is the good news. Now, the bad is that he caught less than half of them, but he is probably going to see similar volume in this game once the Bucs take control of it and it gets out of hand. So I am in on the garbage time points for DJ. Terry McLaurin is the last wide receiver 2 I have. On one hand, I am grateful that he did not decide to get on the roller coaster this season, but on the other, I really miss the peaks that it brought us. He could get there against the Bears, but the 12 targets that he's garnered over the last 2 games is going to have to improve for him to do it. To 25, it is Devonta Smith against Dallas. He has 80 yards or more in 3 out of 4 games, and he should pull the better matchup in this game. But I am not sure if he's going to pull double-digit targets again because it has to be A.J. Brown's turn. To the top of tier 6, I have Allen Lazard. The Lizard Man was able to find the end zone once again. He salvaged his day in London by doing so. He is the most reliable of the Packers receivers. That may not be saying much, but you are betting on him to score another tutty. At 27, I have Drake London. I think the slump probably continues against San Francisco. They've been an absolutely brutal defense to everybody that they have faced. They rank first in passing touchdowns and yards per completion allowed, but at least the size that he has will give Drake a fighting chance. Next up is Jerry Jeudy. You love to see the season high 8 targets that he had last week, but Jeudy is struggling with drops and he still has not been able to pull even half of his targets over the course of the season. LA has a chance at curing him. They allow the 10th most points per game to the position. At 29 is Jakobi Meyers. He returned from a 2-week injury absence to log a 38% target share last week. He caught 7 balls for 110 yards. He gets a plus matchup in the slot this week against Greg Newsome. At the top of tier 7, I have Curtis Samuel. The targets have dwindled for him, almost disappeared over the last 2, but Samuel is still the wide receiver 20 on the season, and he should be fully recovered from the illness that kept him out of practice last week, so he will be improved on the field. 31 sees Adam Thielen against Miami. This is a great matchup, and Thielen remains heavily involved in this offense. He's garnered 7 targets or more in every single game since week number 1, and he's a good bet to bounce back after disappointing against the Bears. Next up is Juju Smith-Schuster. It is hard to promote a guy that has not finished inside the top 34. Back in week number 3 is when he did that. But he has received 8 targets in every single game but 1, so I take my chances with those looks in this game. To the top of tier 8, it is Devin Duvernay. Now this ranking assumes that Rashad Bateman is once again going to be a no-go against the Giants. When that happened last week, Duvernay had 10 touches, racked up 80 yards of total offense. I love that at this level. Moving on, it is Darnell Mooney. Look, Justin Fields has to throw the ball to somebody. Mooney is the guy that he's going to do it to. Washington has been horrid against wide receivers. They're allowing the 4th most points per game to the position, so he has a solid dart throw with some upside. The last wide receiver that I'm going to cover is Alec Pierce. He's got back-to-back 80-yard games or more, and Matt Ryan seems to trust him, look for him, and throw his way often, so you could certainly do worse. And that is all I got for the wide receiver rankings video today. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. Let me know what you thought about my rankings. I will take any constructive criticism. I am always willing to answer your questions and help you out. Throw that down below. Drop a like on the video and please subscribe to the channel. Both of those things help me out a lot. If you don't subscribe, you might miss some of the great content Relentless Press is bringing you. I'm dropping videos Monday to Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific. I got waiver wire targets. I have all of the positional rankings. I do end of the week ranking updates on shorts on Saturday, so keep an eye out for those as well. And I can't say anything else to convince you. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and I will see you next time.